Hi everyone, we're gonna start with conference number 30, Method for Awakening Consciousness, the two consciences, objective and subjective, and we're gonna take a look at what the subjective conscience is. Here we have a picture about an example of the subjective conscience. We all the time live like mechanical creatures, always in our habits, routines of the personality, of our ego, just asleep like as sleepwalkers, like all the time just thinking that our existence is just drinking, partying, sleeping, going to work, and repeating the same railway routines once and over again. And it's called subjective conscience because we lost the objective of our existence. We became fascinated or hypnotized by all habits of the personality, by the force of our ego, and we just are trapped in those routines, and we forget the real purpose and the transcendental and profound objective of the existence. What was the purpose? With what purpose did our essence came to this world? With what purpose did we get a physical human body? We lost that purpose. We think we only live the moment and we live between pleasure and pain and then forget what we did, and we live like robots, repeating and repeating these vicious cycles once and over again. So it's different our objective conscience, because the objective conscience is awakened and knows the purpose of the existence. Well, it's not totally awakened. Is like the 3% of justice, wisdom, and love that we have inside us, but it's not totally awakened. We can start lighting it up and reinforcing it, so we give the magnetic center of gravity to the things of our being. So the objective conscience knows the way back to the stars, knows the way back to the cosmic wisdom, the universal wisdom of our Father. But um, we need to stop the fascination with the subjective things in life. So we're gonna say that the 97% of subconsciousness or darkness that we don't admit we have is the subjective conscience. Is bottled up in our ego and is processed according to that conditioning. So, for example, if we have a psychological flow of anger, the energy, the mental, emotional, motor energy with which we fed the psychological flow is serving that psychological flow. But if we analyze anger, we know that that psychological flow has the essence and wisdom of a virtue inside. The virtue of anger can be, for example, patience, can be the willing to try again, to be persistent, to be willing to have hope on what we do. So if we keep fighting anger, we're gonna liberate different faculties, forces, and virtues that our psychological flow has trapped, and they are going to serve the conscience, the objective conscience. So each time that we disintegrate a psychological flow, we're gonna uh, release the conscience that is trapped in that ego. and that conscience is gonna give us the awareness and the ability to be lucid, not asleep, not mesmerized and fascinated with the subjective things in life. So if we are dying in oneself, our awakening that objective conscience by eliminating here and now our psychological flow, we're going to be living the instant fully conscious in bringing the intuition to our heart. The faculty to communicate with our being is going to wake up. So, as we said, the different psychological flaws that we have in our soul, for example, the resentment has trapped the virtue of forgiveness. The anger has trapped the um, the virtue of harmony, not to be in discord all the time. And so in each moment that we are liberating those essences that are trapped, we are going to increase our percentage of conscience. The essence is asleep, um, or in an unconscious state, stuffed in that 97% of bottled up essence. That is our darkness or our seminal rap, those egos that were created along our human existences, our past existences, with fornication and the different psychological flaws that we have fed in our past existences. So that is in all our subjective conscience. And our objective conscience is the 3% of justice, wisdom, and love that is whispering in our ear, but sometimes we don't hear it. We just ignore what is fair, we just ignore what is truth, uh, and we ignore what is useful because we want to just feed our pleasure and pain mechanically and just keep hypnotized and asleep in our old habits and traditions that constitute our ego. So let's see how we're going to wake up. We are all divided into parts, as we were saying. The 3% awakened conscience that didn't fall because of the fornication is the objective conscience. It's whispering in our ear. It's the intuition of the cosmic universal wisdom. Though sometimes we hear it and just we don't want to follow what it says. So that is when we are just feeding our darkness and we don't like to cultivate light in ourselves. And the 97th of trapped consciousness, that is the subjective conscience, fascinated with ego. All our different 7 causal egos that are um, gluttony, lust, greed, um, pride, envy, and that have trapped our virtues, faculties, and forces that constitute the wisdom of our being. When we rescue the 100% of conscience, we can say we have self-fulfilled our being or reached the purpose of our existence, that is to be fully conscious, 100% conscious. So we're gonna see uh, how the newborn children have the 3% of awakened conscience. We as adults look at the baby with pity. We don't understand. We think that because the baby is just forming his physical body, is weak, is fragile, or it's dependent, and We don't see the being or the essence that the baby has awakened in that moment. In that moment, the baby has the power to see all all what is gonna happen in his human existence, knows his destiny, knows the egos that he has, knows the way back to the universal wisdom, though we as adults look at him and we see that it hasn't been totally formed the physical body, and so we only see the superficial and we think, oh, this children is really unconscious. He doesn't know anything because he hasn't uh, been completely formed. So mm, we don't know, but the egos are just around the crib of the baby. He hasn't yet formed the personality. The personality, we're gonna remember that is the electromagnetic vehicle through which the egos are going to enter to the physical body. And the personality is going to be completely formed until the baby grows and reaches the 7 years old. A 7-year-old child has completely formed his personality, and therefore all the egos are going to manifest through the personality that is formed. So the baby doesn't have the personality formed, so the egos cannot enter to the physical body, and therefore they are around the baby trying to enter the body but cannot do it. So the baby, sometimes we see that they are frightened, that they start yelling and screaming and crying, and we think that it's because he's just asking for being fed, for he's thirsty, maybe he needs to go and make his physiological needs. No, uh, sometimes babies are frightened just because they see the ego that is trying to enter to the body, and uh, well, those terrible and perverse figures frighten the baby, and the baby in that moment can see the different dimensions of nature, can see those horrible figures of what is the ego. So adults think that the baby is completely ignorant of everything, but not. This 3% is fully conscious in that moment. So, as personality forms, as we said, the egos from the previous existence are going to penetrate gradually into the body of the child. So, when the totality of our ego has returned to our body, we appear to in this world as we are, with our perversity, with our inner ugliness, and we become completely hypnotized, fascinated with the toys of personality, completely asleep, and we think the objective in life is maybe to get rich, to purchase material things, to have titles, to have degrees, to travel and know different parts of the world, to be recognized, to be famous, to be immortalized in history. And those are the objectives of the subjective, of the personality. We lost the purpose of our human existence. With our intellectual brain, we could meditate, we could reflect, we could awaken the conscience that is trapped in our ego, but again, we became fascinated with the superficial things in life, and we forgot what we came here for. That is to awaken the 100% of conscience and self fulfill our being. So, As we see, ego cannot manifest yet in the baby. And here we see how the consciousness falls asleep with the toys of personality. We are gonna see that all the appearances of the world, that we are fascinated by material things, that we are fascinated with appearances, the egos of vanity, the egos of pride, the egos of uh, fame, recognition. All those things are going to fascinate us, and we are going to see ourselves in a moment without reason for the existence, because all those purposes are subjective, don't correspond with a transcendental purpose that our essence has. Our essence came from the absolute with the compromise with our divine cosmic father of self-fulfilling, of reaching through wisdom out of darkness. We need to pull the wisdom that each one of our psychological flaws has trapped. The wisdom of darkness is just taking light, which is trapped as desire in each one of our psychological flaws, and use it to serve our conscience, our essence, and the purpose of our being. Just be fully aware of what's happening inside us and outside us. Be fully conscious, that is living with our conscious center in action, just living the instant with intuition, hearing the voice of our Father and communicating with that universal wisdom that is our being. But again, with the materialism, we became fully asleep, and we forgot what was the purpose of coming to this world with a physical human body. So when personalities form, the different egos take possession of the physical body, and therefore in every few occasions the consciousness is going to manifest again. In which cases does the consciousness manifest? In the cases that we feel, for example, that all the toys that we have acquired of our personality, they don't fulfill us anymore. They are vain, they are superficial, and we lost the sense of this existence. We say, well, this is entertaining, but what else? What is beyond this? I want something more. I see these are vanities, and they are going to pass away with time. So I need more. I need to transcend it. I need to reach something profound, spiritual, connect with the wisdom of my being. So in that moment, the consciousness is going to communicate with us and tell us, hey, there is something beyond uh, the all the appearances of the world. There must be something, some profound reason, um, in that we have a physical human body. And in those moments, we can see that there is something of the being trying to reach us. When we die, three things go to the grave. So we are going to see that we have different aspects, different components that are going to disintegrate with time when we reach death. That we have a human physical body that is going to disintegrate in the grave, as we already know, because our human bodies have a human machine that it has biological functions, but is going to deteriorate and eventually be decomposed totally, as well as our vital background. Our vital background is the superior part of our human physical body, and is the energetical part that gives life to the physical body. It's also going to disintegrate with time, uh, in the grave, as well as our physical body, because it's the vitality of the physical body. And our personality that is going to be hanging around in the grave, um, coming and going, rejoicing because the family is going to visit and bring flowers to the grave. So the personality is going to be feeding on that emotional energy for a while, feeding in the on the memories that people have about it. The personality is all our um, superficial things that we think are our identity. For example, the sex, the social status, the name, the last name, the nationality, the different tastes, for example, musical likes, uh, the the career, the the titles, the degrees, the different aspects that we think are our identity. But for example, if we come in another human existence, for example, my next human existence, I can be born a man. I can be born, for example, not in Colombia, but in China, for example. So the personality is something that is going to be very variable according to the human existence and the laws of karma and dharma that we have. So the personality is going to disintegrate with time eventually and slowly become cosmic dust, as well as our vital background and physical human body. So so here we see, and the ego is going to continue beyond the grave. If we haven't disintegrated the different psychological flaws, the 97% of trapped conscience, they are going to be disintegrated with the force of pleasure and pain in the Dantesque circles of the world's inferno that we have in the process of involution. In the process of involution, if we didn't dissolve anger, for example, that psychological flaw is going to feed itself in the infernal worlds mechanically from pleasure to pain until the essence is going to be mechanically released, because we didn't want in this existence to awaken the conscience and to meditate and dissolve the psychological flow of anger. We didn't want to look at the detail of the ego that insults, of the ego that wants to be violent, of the ego that wants to get even, that wants to take revenge. And we didn't reflect on those as sins in our life in order to eliminate them and avoid the ego to be fed again. So if we didn't dissolve it in this human existence with the possibility of having a human body, well, we're gonna eventually fall into involution, and in involution the essence is going to be liberated, but not with an intellectual brain that can reflect, that can uh, compromise, not doing the things to hurt people again, to hurt our being. No, it's going just to liberate it mechanically, and we are not going to use our intellectual brain because we're not gonna have one. It's just going to be an process of just feeding the psychological flow, and it is going to burst by the force of pleasure and pain. And so there are different two different jobs that we need to awaken the 100% of conscience. First, the 3% of objective consciousness, and these are the jobs that are going to allow us to transcend the process of involution, because we have the chance to have an intellectual brain with a physical human body. This existence has been given to us to awaken the two different consciousnesses that we have. The objective one, that is the 3% of justice, wisdom, and love, we are going to awaken it, um, bringing back the light or the desire or the remembrance of oneself, the desire to be one with our divine cosmic wisdom, the remembrance of oneself. We can uh, work it, we can um, cultivate it with different practices. For example, uh, we're going to connect with our being with the three factors of the revolution of consciousness. That is uh, acquiring the, the magnetic center of gravity. Here we have working with the three factors for the revolution of consciousness that we already have mentioned in several conferences. First, the spiritual birth, that is being united in holy marriage with our couple, the couple of our being, our real couple that is going to create with us in the process of the suprasex, the existential bodies of our being, that are the vehicles for knowing the different dimensions, the superior dimensions of nature. So we are going to unite with our couple, our husband or wife. We are going to practice sex, ascending the energy of the Kundalini through our spinal cord and crystallizing vertebrae by vertebrae the different bodies, the superior bodies. For example, regenerating the physical body, regenerating the vital body, creating the astral body, creating the mental body, and creating the causal body, in order to reunite with the Buddhic and Atmic body and connecting with our universal wisdom. Um, the purpose is to ascend the energy, not to get to the orgasm and fornication, but to ascend the sexual creative energy all along our spinal cord, our Kundalini mother, and this sexual creative energy is going to create the different bodies to travel to these dimensions. Is going to be with a partner of the opposite sex, and with the principles of fidelity, chastity, and love. We are gonna work with the other factor of the revolution of conscience, that is the psychological death, that is, as we said, liberating the conscience that is trapped in egos, disintegrating the seven causal egos that are the cause of our suffering, our darkness. And we are going to transform it into light, that essence that we're going to rescue from our ego is the material or the energy that we are going to condense in the different bodies, the existential bodies, and sacrifice for mankind, that is the factor that is going to help us to uh, being able to serve unconditionally to the superior law of love, uninterestedly working uh, for our being and for the principle of uh, the law of love, just not expecting anything in return, just renouncing our ego, our narcissistic form of being, and just helping everyone to awaken their conscience and get in touch with the wisdom of their being and liberate themselves from ego. And as we have said before, to transfer the center magnetic of gravity. What is that? Just centering the importance, the objective of our life, of our human existence on this work that we came here to do, that is working for achieving the 100% of conscience, just awakening that light that we have inside us and make it shine, make it grow with the different virtues, faculties, and forces that our being has. That is knowing that we came here for something profound, something transcendental, that is the elimination of ego, and recognizing that beyond the Maya veil there are different superior dimensions of nature that have all the secrets, all the mysteries of the universal wisdom, and leave the fascination with our personality, because we are so fascinated with the different toys that entertain us, that hypnotize us. For example, technology, for example, physical appearance, vanity, social recognition, pride, titles, degrees, fame, fortune. All of that is going to eventually die with time, and no one is going to remember that. So we need to work for our being and not for losing our energy and our time with the toys of personality that manipulate us like a puppet. So, how to release and awaken the 97% of subconsciousness, subconsciousness, sorry, that is our ego, the seven causal egos that we have in our darkness: anger, gluttony, pride, sloth, lust, envy, greed. We need to disintegrate them in order to liberate ourselves completely from ego and transform that darkness into light. That essence that was really innocent got trapped in the different forms of being of ourselves. So the ego, um, with the psychological death, is the only way to release that. We are going to recognize the different details. We are going to self-observe our microcosmos. We are going to see the different mechanical reactions, the thoughts, the feelings, the actions that these egos want to manifest through our human machine. For example, take greed, for example. We are gonna see that if we self-observe our our mind, all the time we're thinking about money, that we need it to survive, that we need to do this and that, that we need to enslave ourselves with these activities. And all the time, if we are walking through the street and we self-observe ourselves, maybe we observe that our mind is chatting internally, that we have bills to pay, that we are worried, that we need to do that, that we need to go to the bank and pay the rent, etc., etc. And those mental chatting are going to waste our mental energy. If we don't have energy, our different centers of our human machine are going to be unbalanced, and we are not going to be able to save that energy, that mental energy, for example, for the creation of our superior existential bodies. So we need to pull out the virtues from this psychological flow, and each time that we have a thought, a feeling, or the ego wants us to do something mechanically, we're going to tell the Divine Mother to eliminate that from our psyche. For example, Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego that is thinking about paying the receiving that in this moment. Because what happens if we don't eliminate it in that moment? We're gonna keep thinking, wasting mental energy. We're not paying the receiving that moment, but we're thinking about doing it. So we are wasting the mental energy that we have. We are suffering. We are bringing anguish to our life, and we need to stop that and save that energy for creation, the sexual creation of our bodies. So we already know that the process for awakening our subjective conscience that is trapped in ego is just self-observing ourselves, recognizing and accepting that we have different thoughts that correspond to our egos. For example, I self-observe myself and I notice that I want to shout, I want to scream, I want to insult at someone that I don't like. So I see the ego of anger manifesting in thoughts, feelings, and actions. And I'm going to beg the Divine Mother. First, I'm going to understand, why do this ego wants me to do that? Why do I think I'm gonna solve my problems by doing that? So, for example, take the ego of insults. So this ego wants to insult because I think that is the best way to stop people annoying me. So they only are going to understand by the force of insulting them. So I see that there is an ego that wants to dominate people by telling bad words. So I see that is something that is not from my conscience, but is from the ego of anger. Maybe it's an ego of violence that wants to mistreat people. So when I get to understand that, finally I'm going to go to the process of elimination, and I'm gonna tell Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego of violence that rejoices and has pleasure with mistreating people. So I'm going to eliminate that. For example, that is an example. You can take your psychological flaws that are going to be really different. Maybe you have different egos, and you self-observe yourself. You understand what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're gonna do. You question yourself, is this truthful, is this fair, and is this useful? No, it's not useful to waste my verbal energy insulting. I'm just hurting myself and I'm hurting other people. It's not truthful because I'm just hurting someone, and I'm gonna be guilty afterwards, and I'm not going to feel good either because I notice that I'm just mistreating someone, and it's not fair because it's not fair with my being to be wasting my energy in this mechanical reaction. So I tell Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego of insults, just contaminating myself, like poisoning myself with negative emotions, and just is not useful for my being. So Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego. And well, this is the conference. uh, I don't know if you have a question, a suggestion, you can get in touch. And thank you for attention, and I hope you practice this process of the psychological death because it's going to liberate your conscious and going to get you to communicate with the wisdom of your being. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.